What did you say? I'm sorry.
Hi, everybody. This is Limited with the audience members, and we're lucky to have today Tracy Rector going to interview with us. And thanks so much for this today. Can you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Tracy Rector, and I've been making films for about 14 years, and everything I do is for, by, and about the Native Indigenous communities here in the lands now called North America. And I live in Seattle. I grew up here, and most of my stories center around Coast Salish people, which are the people living along the Salish Sea here in our region.
Great. Well, Tracy, I know you talked about Standing Rock as well, and I was wondering, tell us a little bit about your experience there and as a filmmaker.
Sure. So I went to Standing Rock at the beginning of November and ended up staying for about a month. And it was a pretty life-altering experience. It was at first a little overwhelming. I wasn't sure what to think of, given social media and news coverage about what I would see. And when we first arrived, it was just really taking about 2 or 3 days to becoming acclimated to the camps, to the area, and to just the knowledge and information about what's happening on the ground there. And so we initially spent some really warm, beautiful days, actually, just circling around camp, talking to people, eating food, sharing stories, going to trainings, and just learning what we needed to know before really, before we began or to start any sort of media work. We drove back to Seattle real quick. I dropped my son off so he could finish his finals. We went back and then we started essentially 3 weeks of intensive media making. In that time, we created about 31 short films, and we have footage for about another 10 to 15 stories. And we were just trying to do our best to have a quick turnaround. We wanted to share the stories about people who are on the front lines doing the work, who are part of the community. The organizers, the young people, the white allies, and we wanted to provide essentially an antidote to a lot of the violence that was being covered by the press. There wasn't a huge mass media presence at all at Standing Rock when we first arrived, or even prior to that. The only coverage I really was aware of was Democracy Now!, Al Jazeera, the Young Turks, for example, but none of the big news agencies. And so when there were various violent incidents like the dog attacks or the water cannons and sub-freezing weather, that's when the news really started taking notice. And so I think what was put out there was a lot of really violent, scary images. And so as an Indigenous filmmaker, I just wanted to go and do my best to share stories of the people. So kind of the broader viewer, audience person, or someone who's interested in the stories and what's happening at Standing Rock could just begin relating to people from their own personal viewpoint, from their point of view. And so that's the work that I was doing there.
And is there you can see these films? What the film?
Sure. So we loaded our films onto our Vimeo site, which is Longhouse Media. And they're the first 31 videos on there right now. And again, it ranges from young people, young Native people, to white allies who came all the way up from Selma, Alabama, who witnessed the civil rights era struggles and movement, and was able to compare that experience as a white person in that time period to what was and is happening currently at Standing Rock. So pretty incredible stories.
Is there anything you'd like us to know?
I couldn't hear your question.
Oh, sorry. For those who weren't at school, is there anything you know?
Is there anything that I think people should know?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a great outpouring of support. We ended up being there through Thanksgiving, and a ton of donations came in. The camp swelled from about 6,000 people to about 10 or 11,000 people. So there was many, many people who came from all over the world, really, and across the country to lend a hand to winterize the camp and to bring donations. While we were there, though, we experienced 2 blizzards and a mass exodus of the camp because I've never seen snow go this way. Winters in North Dakota are no joke. We went from 65-degree weather at the beginning of our trip to negative 16 degrees. And so I think probably what people should know right now is if you want to help, it's most important to give directly to the tribe, not to the camps, to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Right now, they are footing the bill for all the infrastructure, for the wood, for protecting the water protectors who've decided to remain in camp. Also, the legal collective, the Water Protector Legal Collective, really needs financial resources currently, as well as legal volunteers. There were about 600 water protectors arrested over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. And the Water Protector Legal Collective are the ones, along with the tribe, who posted bail for all those people. And their trials are about to come up in January, February, or March. So I think that would be one of the major call outs. And I'd say don't send any donations right now, any physical donations, I mean, because there's just nowhere to put everything right now, and that's blizzard conditions, and that creates a hardship, and nobody really wants to create waste. So if you want to send a donation, a financial donation to the tribe or to the Water Protector Legal Collective would be great.
Great. And I know you're a filmmaker, Indigenous. Can you talk a little bit about community film and like more exposure where that
Sure. So I heard a really interesting statistic a couple months ago, and it's pretty well known. I believe that the film industry is 86 to 88% white men currently in North America. And so there you go. That's the major perspective that we're seeing in most storytelling, in major cinematic forms, independent films, etc. In terms of Indigenous women, I believe our percentage is 0.06% in the media industry. So our stories are not being told. And it's really been a huge passion of mine for the last 14 years to leverage any sort of resources that I come across or any sort of success or platforms to bring up peers and to create opportunities and openings for other Indigenous filmmakers and media makers. There's some really great successes. Sherman Alexie's one of them. His film, though, Smoke Signals, is, I believe, 15 years old and still the only major cinematic film that's had major theatrical release made by an Indigenous producer, writer, director. And I think it's the only one out of thousands of films. And he's actually coming up with a new story that Hugh Jackman is jumped on board. And they're going to make sure that everyone that they hire in the roles of Native people will actually be Native. So I think with Standing Rock and with so much attention on the fight that as Indigenous people we've been fighting for over 500 years, maintaining space, place, and identity, I think that hopefully, I'm just putting it out there, that we're going to see a change in people's interest in hearing Indigenous stories. Yeah.
Why is that?
Sorry?
Why is it important for the voice to tell?
Sure. Well, Native stories, Native history is everyone's history who lives here now in the lands called North America. We are the first people, and I think that this is powerful. There's this connection that Native people have to tens of thousands of years of ancestral memory in the land. There's an incredible wealth of storytelling, knowledge, cultural perspective that I think uh, it's incredible. It's an opportunity when listening and watching media made by Indigenous filmmakers to be open to new ways of thinking, to new thought processes, to new inspiration, to new creativity. So I think that it's important to hear our stories because we're at a time and place right now where I think a lot of people are feeling pretty vulnerable in the world, and we need hope. And I think that storytelling can provide valuable lessons, a sense of self empowerment, and hope.
I'm wondering what you barrier for people to tell their story.
Sure. The major barriers that I experience is so many of us, so many people I know are total DIY filmmakers. We've taught ourselves. We do the best we can with the resources that we have. And, we need more money. We need more access to equipment. We need more training. I wish that I could afford some formal training. I can't. Everything that I do in order to create work or any sort of service work that I do, for example, creating a gala video for a Native organization, all of that money gets rolled into making more media. And so I think the biggest barriers are resources and access to platforms and distribution and training.
Great. Is there anything you would like to leave us to know about rock or filmmaking that are women or
Sure. In my personal filmmaking philosophy, I feel that the ego is a very dangerous trap, and that collective filmmaking, collaborative filmmaking is incredibly positive. And if more people are able to just reach out and share resources and help each other get their stories told, I think that's going to be a way that we can organically lift one another up. And in terms of Indigenous people, if you're feeling generous this holiday season, I think it's great to invest in Indigenous filmmakers out there trying to tell their stories. There's many at Standing Rock right now, braving the blizzard conditions. There are many who have been at Standing Rock who are going back, and they're dedicated to documenting and witnessing this incredibly historic moment in time. And I think that's where sometimes the creative ingenuity of being a DIY filmmaker comes in handy. It helps to be able to be an activist when all you know is to make it work as best as possible with what you have. And so I think there's a lot of creative people out there that I hope your audience is interested in checking out and following their work and perhaps supporting. And in terms of women, we really need to be heard. Indigenous women have some beautiful minds, beautiful perspectives, and I would really like to see Indigenous women's stories specifically be focused on and upheld in this point in time. The center of the Standing Rock movement, it's an Indigenous-led movement, but the center of that is youth and the wisdom of women. So I'd like to see that extended to storytelling as well.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for you and spending your time with us.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.